So you've decided you want to become a teacher, or maybe you're already into your teaching journey and you're wondering whether or not you should take that teaching journey abroad. Hi, I'm April and I teach math to high schoolers. I'm originally from Canada and I graduated from Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario back in 2015. I've been teaching for 8 years, and my teaching journey abroad has brought me to many countries such as Kazakhstan, South Korea, China, Qatar, and now Thailand, where I'm currently based. So now I'm going to share my top 9 reasons why you should consider teaching or working abroad. Keep in mind, this is based on my personal experience, so yours will be different from mine. But throughout the video, I'll also share some insights that I've gathered during my time working internationally, such as questions that you should ask before thinking about accepting a contract, or different considerations to think about when looking at which geographical region you'd like to work in. Reason number 1 is high earning potential and low cost of living. I was recently home in Canada for winter break, and I had a discussion with this guy who works for a big tech company in New York. And even though I'm pretty sure he makes a lot more money than me, he is living in an apartment that's really small, 2 bedrooms, and he has a roommate. Meanwhile, me, with my lower salary, living in Thailand, I can afford to have a maid come and do my cleaning for me, as well as my dishes and my laundry twice a week. And if I really wanted to, I could afford to have her come in every day and cook my meals for me. But I choose not to do that intentionally. So what I'm saying is it's all based on location. If you have a high salary, but you're living in a place that costs a lot to rent, maybe you need a vehicle or a car, those are all going to be additional expenses. So when you're looking for a place to work internationally, something to consider is what is the cost of living there and how much will my salary get me in terms of conveniences for my life. So for example, I was considering a contract in Hong Kong and I looked through the contract and they offered a 6-figure salary. Woo! But if you look at the living costs in Hong Kong, 50% of my salary monthly would go towards just renting a place. And I know that Hong Kong is a very densely packed city. And so I would probably have a really, really tiny 1-bedroom apartment, and contrast that to Thailand, where I'm earning way less than 6 figures, but I have an apartment that is provided for free by the school. I've got 2 bedrooms, more than I need for one person, and I can afford little luxuries like having a maid come and clean my house, which is actually a big luxury if you think about it. Reason number 2 is travel opportunities. International teachers travel all the time. Every one of my colleagues would travel during our holidays, and teachers have a lot of holidays. Depending on where you're living, the country that you're living in, there might be a lot of opportunities within that place to travel. So for example, living in Thailand, there are a ton of islands and a lot of scenic places. You can go camping, you can go hiking, you can go scuba diving, you can go rock climbing, you can learn Muay Thai. There's a ton of stuff to do here. Thailand is actually an amazing place to travel and have different experiences. And depending on the school that you work for, an added perk might be school trips. So in another video, I talk about a recent trip that I went on to Qatar. And basically, I got paid to go diving and learn about marine conservation with my students. It was pretty awesome. So something else that might be worth looking into when you're deciding whether or not to accept a contract is the location in terms of how close it is where you'll be staying to the airport. So I remember my first contract was in Kazakhstan. That was the first international job that I ever got. And the airport was actually 3 hours away. So in terms of leaving the country, it was way more difficult to do. But there were other travel opportunities that I had access to within the country by bus, which is what I ended up doing in the end. Reason number 3 is the potential to drastically accelerate your career path. So back in 2015, when I graduated from Queen's University, I had zero prospects. So I really, really wanted to work for the public board where I went to school and where I grew up. And unfortunately, there were just no jobs for teachers at the time. And it was actually way easier to get a job overseas than it was to get a teaching job back home. Now the situation is a little bit different, but what that move allowed me to do was to have my own classroom right away, gain a ton of teaching experience. If I stayed in Canada and stayed in Ontario and worked there, I would have had to really work my way up. First, by starting with substitute teaching, and this could range from anywhere from 2 to 5 years, where I would be doing that before I got accepted for a full time position. And of course, that also varies depending on the subject matter you're teaching. So I know that in Ontario or in Canada in general, if you teach French, it's highly likely that you'll get a full time job, but that's not what I'm qualified to teach. And that's also not what I'm passionate about. In my personal experience, it can also be way easier to obtain leadership positions when working internationally. Now, of course, this again varies depending on the school that you're working at. But for example, in my third year of teaching, I applied for and got a math department head position. So that was after 3 years of teaching full time and only 1 year working at that particular school that I was at. So I ended up being a math department head for 2 years and got a ton of experience. It was incredibly humbling. I learned a lot. At the particular school that I was working at, it also was not uncommon for people to get leadership positions without a ton of work experience. So, for example, we had a vice principal, and her teaching experience in terms of number of years that she'd been teaching was actually less than a majority of the other teachers at the school. She had the qualifications, she had the degree, but she was able to accelerate her career path and get the VP position without having to put in a ton of classroom work. Reason number 4 is professional development opportunities. So think professional development funds, opportunities to go to conferences and workshops worldwide, as well as stipends for things like coaching or extracurricular activities. Again, the caveat here is it does depend on the school that you're working at, but almost every single contract that I've worked included some sort of professional development program or fund that allows you to explore your own areas of interest. So at my current contract, for example, we have PD funds that we can use towards educational books, going to workshops and conferences. I was able to get my IB certification and do IB training through my PD funds at the school, and a ton of other opportunities as well. Reason number 5 is cultural immersion and personal growth. When I first moved overseas to Kazakhstan, I was really excited, but also scared. I was all alone. I didn't really know anyone there except for my one friend. But that whole first day that I was in Kazakhstan, I was so afraid to leave my apartment. I think I was out of the apartment for maybe an hour total. That night, I had stale bread for dinner. I didn't even know where to go to get dinner. I didn't speak the language very well. And I didn't have a smartphone, so you couldn't really look stuff up. It was really, really hard. And I think that's the kind of the point. During my time in Kazakhstan, I'd not only learned about teaching, and my experience in the classroom taught me a lot, but I also ended up learning a lot about myself. I learned how important it was to reach out to others and ask for help. I was humbled by the community of people that I met there, and I realized how important it is to immerse yourself and expose yourself to the language of the country where you work. Living in a place, not just traveling to a place, offers you a totally different and unique perspective of what it's like. You have to immerse yourself completely in that experience. It fosters greater empathy. You become more adaptable as a person. It's not all fun and it's not all good. There are moments where it's going to be really hard. You might not find your community, or it might be really hard to establish that in the first place. But as long as you're open-minded and you're flexible, you are going to learn a ton. Reason number 6 is housing benefits and travel allowance. In my experience, every single contract that I've taken offers housing benefits. So it is actually really uncommon to find a contract that doesn't offer some sort of housing allowance or just housing that's included in your contract. In my current contract, for example, the housing is included in addition to my regular salary. We also have the option of actually taking a stipend where we can go and rent our own place elsewhere if you don't want to live in teacher housing. I did not opt to make that choice. In terms of travel allowance, that is usually a round trip ticket or a one-way ticket from your country of residence to the location where you're working. And typically that is also provided in most, if not all, teaching contracts. This really links back to reason number 1, where I talk about high savings potential, because most people spend about 30%, I guess that's the rule of thumb, 30% of your monthly gross income is spent on rent or maybe your mortgage. Now imagine reducing that to 0%. Think about the savings potential there. You do the math. Reason number 7 is independence. I'm Asian, and it is not uncommon for people of Asian descent to be living with their parents until they're 50. Working internationally has allowed me the freedom and the independence to figure out life on my own terms. If I had just continued working in Canada, I would likely still be living with my parents to save money on rent because I can't afford to move out. And also, I would have to be paying for things like insurance and get a vehicle and all that fun stuff. Reason number 8 is building a global network. I have met teachers from all walks of life, all ages, single, with family, no kids, divorced, whatever, from all over the world, Jamaica, South Africa, the UK, the US, Australia, New Zealand, the list goes on. I have received so much support, guidance, and encouragement from colleagues with diverse backgrounds and who have different teaching experiences and who think differently from me. There's a trickle effect where it can actually open you up to different opportunities and experiences and maybe even new hobbies. So, for example, I ran my first half marathon in Kazakhstan. I hated running when I first started, but I had coworkers who really, really loved it. So they exposed me to the sport of running. In Korea, I learned to play Dungeons and Dragons. It's something that I've never done before. Now I can say I've done it. And that was before Stranger Things started airing on Netflix. I joined a cycling group in Thailand. I've never cycled before, and I did my first long distance bike ride earlier this year. Honestly, this is probably one of my favorite things about teaching and working internationally is the people that you meet. I have met so many people who have challenged me, guided me, mentored me, and just helped me become a better person overall. I wouldn't be who I am. I wouldn't be where I am without the people that I have met in my life. Finally, reason number 9 is a unique life experience. If you had asked me 10 years ago what I would imagine my life to be like 10 years from now, I would not have painted this picture for you. My teaching journey thus far has taken me to 5 different countries. I've learned a smattering of different languages. I was able to pay off my student debt in record time. I've met so many wonderful people from all walks of life, and the list goes on. But of course, it's not always pretty. It can be quite scary and intimidating at times. For example, COVID. That was when the world was full of uncertainty. I did get kicked out of a country at one point. Story for another time, maybe. Wherever you are in your teaching journey, whether or not you're just beginning, you're thinking about getting started, or maybe you've been teaching for a couple years already, I hope you found this video useful. I would love to hear your thoughts and questions in the comment section below, and share with your friends or colleagues who might be on a similar journey. Thanks for watching. My beautiful flowers from my Mavon. Look at this awesome message that she wrote me. So I just came back from vacation and she got me these orchids, left them in my apartment with a beautiful message that reads, "Hi April, welcome home, Happy New Year." And they're gorgeous. I love them so much.